podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome to How Are the Podcast, and as always we're here for our usual Sunday supplement. And you might think that because on paper we're about to talk about a 3-0 defeat for the lads, that we might be feeling pretty down and glum about the game. And when you throw in the fact that we've conceded a total of 9 goals in the last 3 away games, 3 in each one for those with short memories, it might have us a little concerned for the rest of the season. But you will find none of that on this podcast, because I, for one, was proud of Sunderland's performance at Arsenal. And I'm sure the people who I've got with me today have similar feelings, because we have an absolute treat for you today. Well, it's maybe more of a treat for ourselves, actually, because it's pretty rare that we're all on together as a three. Because first up, it's Gavin Henderson. Hello, Gav.
Treat? Treat for who? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, probably is a treat for us. We have briefly threatened that we would do this. That we would get the three of us on all at once at some point, because we just tend to spread ourselves thinly, don't we? Because there's so much content coming out that we can't always all be in the same place at the same time. But yeah, should be good, this.
Well, that's it. I need to spread myself thinly, Gav, because as we came straight on this morning before recording and we're talking about pork scratchings and stuff like that, which means I have to spread myself thinly. But you're talking about the Yorkshire pork scratchings, Gav. But you got some in the Bridges, didn't you, in Sunderland? Garlic ones. I've never heard of those.
And Sunderland's going all continental, isn't it? Doing pork scratchings.
On and off the pitch, you mean?
That's it, aye. There was a bit of a market on yesterday before the game, so I managed to pick up a few bits. And flavoured pork scratchings were on the menu, and really good Japanese food in Jackie White's Market. I just want to give that recommendation to people that go to Shinobi in Jackie White's Market. I had some really nice ramen yesterday. So yes, Sunderland is on the up. Where the food culture's changing. It's not just pork pies and Savoy dips and pink slice. We're actually we're branching out a bit.
Well, for those people who are old enough, than I am, will remember Shinobi for different things. I had the Shinobi game, the handheld game. I don't know if it was out for game consoles or not, but I had the handheld one. But anyway, moving on, because this is this is our treat today, because we have Martin Wanless with us as well. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Chris. Oh, it's good to be it's good to get all of us together, isn't it? It's not often this happens. I think the last time was the Christmas quiz, wasn't it? Which the least said about that, the better, probably. But it's funny when you're talking about food and Sunderland going continental in terms of the food that you can get. I was talking to a lad who I'm friends with, who's another English fella out here, and he lives in Sydney. And he was going, next time you come down to Sydney, you've got to go to this place in North Sydney. They sell proper pork pies, proper Scotch eggs, and proper meat pies. And you can get a good meat pie in Australia, but you can't get a Scotch egg or a pork pie for love nor money. So that's the culinary revolution that's hitting Australia at the minute: Scotch eggs and pork pies.
But the question is, though, Martin, were they actually proper Scotch eggs and proper pork pies?
I haven't sampled them yet. The ones that he had didn't have an egg in the middle. They were Melton Mowbray pork pies, apparently. But we'll have to see next time. Next time we're in town, we'll go and check them out.
Well, you're on about them. You get them slices with the egg in. I've never had one of them for years.
Well, that's it, because I went to uni in Leicester, so I was kind of treated there whenever I had a proper pork pie from a proper place. It was always proper stuff.
We're avoiding football here, by the way.
we are. Well, anyway, let's get
new food review podcast from How We Are the Podcast. We're branching out.
I'll tell you what, I've written that down already. It's on the shortlist for a future pod. But anyway, before we get into the game, Gav, I wanted to talk about, because it's kind of, it's relevant because of the game as well, because Granit Xhaka had a big interview with the BBC, and it's worth touching on before we get into the football, because some really interesting things that came out of that, I thought. One of them was the fact that, we thought we're getting a bit of a coup and maybe kind of jumped in when nobody else was. But according to Xhaka, he said he had offers from all over the shop before we came in.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of reported at the time that it was basically the owner, wasn't it, who went out and got him. But I like the bit in the interview where he was he said, no, people were asking, like, am I crazy? Why are you going to Sunderland? Like, what are you doing? And he said, I just love the sound of it. I love the sound of the Like, he took a big, big gamble coming to Sunderland. I think it's fair to say it's paid off, though, because he's probably got more respect as a footballer in the last 6 months than he probably has at any point in his career. And I would include winning titles in Germany in that. I think sort of internationally, he has gained more recognition in the last 6 months for the job he's done with Sunderland than he has at any point in his career. So it's certainly been worth it, because I think he probably hasn't got the praise he's deserved over his career. You know, he had problems at Arsenal and things like that at times where that maybe soured things. But just, yeah, I thought it was a really, really good interview. People can watch that or listen. I think it's on BBC Sounds, isn't it? And I've seen it on YouTube and iPlayer and stuff. Yeah, I've seen it in a few different places, but it is really good. I think it was clearly recorded maybe a couple of weeks ago. But yeah. Again, Granit Xhaka, look, he's an absolute superstar, isn't he? World-class footballer. I'm gutted he hasn't been able to play the last couple of games. But I think from a sort of sadistic point of view, I don't know if sadistic's the word, but Regis Labrise will have been keen to see how we cope without him, who steps up in his absence. And I think some of the lads have acquitted themselves pretty well without him. But yeah, get well soon, Granit. We need you back.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, you know, going more into that interview, Martin, you know, he made it very clear that he wasn't coming to us for a relegation scrap, and he wasn't coming to us because, I'll just help out Sunderland in terms of, you know, keeping them up, and he wasn't, you know, he had no intentions of going down with us. So, I mean, it wasn't just, I don't think, persuasion from the Sunderland owner, Kirill Louis-Dreyfus. I think actually he was almost guaranteed that we wouldn't be in that position.
Well, the way he talked, that was one of the stipulations that he made, wasn't it? When he first talked to Kirill Louis-Dreyfus, he said, you know, I don't want to come here if it's a relegation battle. I don't want to come to Sunderland, play in the Premier League for one season and go into the Championship. So he, you know, put his cards very much on the table. And obviously he was reassured by what he heard back in response, wasn't he? And, you know, there was a number of things that came out of it, which I thought were really, really interesting in terms of how he is as a person, as well as the football side of things. Because he's obviously got this reputation of being a winner and all that sort of stuff, and being very driven. And I thought it was interesting. He said he asked Geertruida, how do other players, the opposition team, see me? And Geertruida goes, they all hate you. We all hated you when we played against you. And he was like, what? Well, why? It was just because you're always talking, you're always at people, you're always getting into people. He goes, I just want to win. I just want to win every time I go on the football pitch, and that's how he kind of translates it. And I think it's been massively important, hasn't it, for us this season to have him in the team setting those standards, because, you know, players have, Dan Ballard talked about it early in the season, Isidore's talked about it. He's really raised the bar in terms of what professionalism looks like and what it takes to succeed. And he reminds me a lot of Roy Keane in that respect, in terms of how he commands respect, how he sets high standards for himself and leads by example. And, you know, I think it would be really easy for a number of players to come to Sunderland and just think, look, I'll come to a newly promoted side, I'll get into the Premier League. If I do all right, I'll get another move in 12 months' time, regardless of what happens to Sunderland. And I think he's put a different dimension on how the other players are thinking about this season, what's possible as well. But my favourite bit of the interview was when he said when he's alone at home, if his wife and kids are away, he can't actually sleep in the bedroom. He's got to sleep in the living room because he hates being alone, which I thought was a really interesting and a good insight into the type of person he is, because he just loves being surrounded by people, and he's so passionate about football. He says he just watches everything from non-league football to Champions League football. Every single time he's at home, there's just football on TV, and his wife gets pissed off by it because she wants to watch maths or something like that, probably. But he's watching a conference game because he said he just wants to learn. And I think that's a really interesting bit in terms of how he sees and what's going to happen over the next few years with him, because he obviously has a plan to go on to coach. He talked about it at Leverkusen. He had a 5-year contract with them, and part of that was going to move into coaching, wasn't it? And I think we'll see that over the coming seasons with us, hopefully. But you're right, it's not a good situation, but as Gav said, it's kind of like a perversely good situation for Regis Lebris at the minute, because he's got to solve this problem of how to play without Xhaka. And even though over this spell our results might not be as good as it would be if he was in the team, I think longer term the players will be actually better off for having that, 4, 5, 6 weeks or whatever it'll be without him in the team. Players will step up, players will take on responsibility. He's talked about players taking on more leadership and stuff like that, hasn't he? So I think it'll be a good thing in the longer term, but I do think we miss him on the pitch when he's not there.
Yeah, it is one of them. And Gav, it feels like Regis Lebris is being asked about it after every game, and especially after every defeat. And it was no different after this one. I mean, of course, we'll go through the game in a minute, but after the game, Granit Xhaka was part of the conversation about the result, bizarrely, and Regis Lebris again had to respond to that. He said, he basically said, as he always does, that Sunderland accept the challenge of having one of our players missing, and we deal with it in the shape of the team, and we, that we kind of have this experience in terms of those younger players. But it is a thing, isn't it, that Granit Xhaka's out, and because he's played he played every minute pretty much until he got injured. So, but there's that thing now where it's like every result, Regis Lebris is being asked about it to say, well, it's because Xhaka's out, which seems a bit unfair.
Oh yeah, definitely it is. I think it's just while you were talking there, it came to mind there. I think it's a really interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because there are a lot of clubs and a lot of managers where if you had a personality as big as Xhaka who has such an influence, that would threaten the manager. And every time he was asked about it, it would feel like he's kind of being undermined from within, maybe, But we don't have that feeling with Xhaka at Sun. It's very strange. Like, you've got a player who is that influential, yet there's no threat to the manager. There's no threat to his way of doing things. He's actually very much a part of that. He's sort of in a hybrid of coaching and playing, isn't he? It's unusual. That's what I mean. I can't remember it ever happening, never mind working, but it is working. And every time he gets brought up, I just think of that. I just think, imagine that was Neil Warnock or Harry Redknapp, like a bit more of a fiery personality where they were being asked about this player all the time. Like, would their confidence take a bit of a knock? Like, would they feel like they were being questioned? But no, I think it's an insight into how highly thought of he is, how important he is to the club, to the team. He was on the pitch when we got battered away at Man City. He's been on the pitch when we've lost games. So you couldn't look at some of these defeats and say, well, maybe the West Ham one. I think we definitely felt his loss against West Ham, but
that's
I think
the one that stands out, isn't it? That's the one that stands out in terms of him being missing from the team, from his football ability, but also from his influence on the field. I think that stood out, didn't it?
Yeah,
it did. And but then I think you saw, even in losing against Arsenal and then the win against Burnley, I think you've seen how that was, a good learning experience. I think Lebris said something along those lines after West Ham. He was talking about how, he needs new leaders to step up, and he actually talked about Xhaka and said Granit wants new leaders to step up. And I think even in this Arsenal game, you would say that happened. So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say he was there wasn't there as a leader against West Ham. And he was missed, but he did try and take on the whole of the West Ham crowd. To be fair, from the Sunderland bench, but yeah, I mean, just getting into the team and kind of bringing that conversation in about Granit Xhaka, Martin, because actually just on that, in the preview we were mentioning how tough a job you've got trying to second guess what Regis Lebris does for every game in terms of the starting 11. Because nobody ever knows. He always seems to have a trick up his sleeve. But again, he came out with the same starting 11 as he did for the Burnley game. And again, just looking at that in the context of Xhaka being out, it worked so well at home with Lafayette in that kind of Roman role where he can float and he can do that thing and he can really do that. And it worked, against the likes of Burnley at home. Against the likes of Arsenal away, which we saw in the first part of the season, maybe at Chelsea, and when we've got a slightly different shape, and if you put Xhaka into that midfield with Diarra and Siddiqui, does that kind of shore us up when we've got three in the middle of the park who can get up and down and win the ball and got a bit more bite, and Lafayette can maybe move out to the wing or something like that? Because is this the sort of game where we really miss Xhaka, where we have to be really kind of tight in that midfield?
I think when Xhaka plays in midfield, and I think he's actually had sort of almost two phases of his role in midfield with us this season. For the first bit of games, probably until AFCON, he was playing a more sort of defensive midfield role, wasn't he? When AFCON came around and Gertruida came in midfield, Xhaka actually pushed up a bit and stepped up into one of the positions that Siddiqui would normally take up. So he's actually kind of changed his role a little bit. But look, I think you're always going to miss Xhaka in midfield for whichever game we play. This is a game that's, against Arsenal away. It's as much about the physical side and the footballing side as about the mental side as well. And I think we do miss him from that organisational point of view as much as anything else. On the ball, he can do an awful lot. He wins tackles and all that sort of stuff. But, you can, as I say, I think any game we're going to miss him. So it's what do we need to do with the team to change that? And it was interesting, wasn't it, that Lebris had talked about needing to find almost a new system to cope without Xhaka because you can't replace him directly. And, I think when he first got injured, all of us were expecting Gertruida just to come into that role, play the same sort of system. Gertruida comes in to replace Xhaka, and you kind of just carry on as normal. For whatever reason, obviously, there's been things going on behind the scenes with Gertruida. Lebris hasn't felt comfortable doing that, whether it's because Gertruida isn't the right player to come into that team or in that formation, or whether his head wasn't quite right for a little bit. And he's actually tried the same thing, hasn't he, at West Ham and at home to Burnley and at the Arsenal game yesterday. The big difference was at West Ham, Mayenda played in that sort of role, and he just didn't quite work. He wasn't going out and supporting Hume and Mukiele and people like that on the flank. I thought against Burnley, we played really well. Diarra coming back into the team, he looks fantastic. An absolutely quality player. Talby came back into the team. And I just thought for the game yesterday, I couldn't see any reason why you would change it. I know it's easy for me to say in hindsight, but it's like, I just thought it was a absolutely nailed on, unchanged side unless there was injuries. I didn't see a viable alternative to change that 11. So it was, I will just doff my cap to myself. I did get the starting 11 right on the website for once in the build-up to the game yesterday. But I did think it was probably the easiest starting 11 to predict all season. So yeah. I think I wasn't in the least bit surprised that we kind of just came to the Emirates with what we started the Burnley game with.
Yeah, well, if you get one of those right, Martin, I think you should shout from the rooftops, to be honest, because I usually haven't got a clue what Regis Lebris is doing. But again, just getting into the team, Gav, because as Martin said, a pretty obvious one. But one thing that stuck out for me, because obviously Elborg and Angulo were on the bench, which I was slightly surprised about in terms of Angulo, especially, I have to admit. And just I didn't think, because I saw Simon Moore on the bench for the last one, I just didn't think that they'd be on the bench, but they were thrown straight in there. And just looking at the bench, Gav, Elborg, 09, Sirkin, Gertruida, Rig, Mundell, Angulo, Mayenda, Isidore. Now, I haven't been through them all, but I'd be surprised if we've had a stronger bench all season.
Yeah, you could be right. I haven't. Yeah, I would have to have a look. But it is nice to see options, isn't it? Angulo, I wasn't surprised about, actually, because when Lebris was asked about him in his press conference, he basically said he would be on the bench. He said he's fit, he's ready. But he didn't come into Sunderland until Thursday night, I think. So he's possibly only had one day of training, and even then, we'd have probably flown down to London Friday night or Friday afternoon. So he's not had a lot of time around his teammates. But I wrote about this on the website, but I just had this feeling going into the game, I had a dream, a premonition, that it was going to be like Cisse away at Spurs all them years ago, and he was going to come off the bench and get the winner. But by the time he got the chance to come on the pitch, it was pretty much game over, wasn't it? But it was nice to see him on there. I think it's the difference with him is he's coming straight into the squad off a bit of a hot streak with his last club, and he's fit and he's ready. And actually, that's got connotations for the games coming up, I think, because he's been getting goals and assists albeit in Belgium, but he's also been, if you look at his the games he played, certainly in the last 2 or 3 months of the campaign, he's basically played the full 90 in every game. So he is ready to go. And I'm just wondering how quickly we'll actually transition him into our first team, because it's not as though those wing positions are nailed down at the minute. So like you wouldn't be shocked to see him start even on Wednesday night. We hear all about how great he is defensively and all the rest of it. Look, if he's fit and he's ready, he'd probably be playing very, very soon. But the rest of the bench was pretty strong. I was a little surprised not to see Hertrauder start, if I'm honest. I thought he would be the only one that would come in. I'm not at all gutted that he didn't. I just thought that's what would happen. And maybe the fact that he hasn't started in the last bunch of games is a bit of a sign of where he's viewed, and maybe how and the reasons why that he nearly left to go to Liverpool and all that. I don't know. We might hear more about it in the fullness of time, but I just thought this would be a game he would come into.
Gav, who would you have put Hertrauder in for, and where would you have played?
I was thinking maybe changing up that right hand side a little bit, maybe moving the midfield around. So what I was expecting to see was a really, really defensive 11 where maybe Talby came out, and then you would have him coming into the middle, Diarra maybe moving more far right onto that right hand side of the midfield, and then a back five of Hume playing as a wing back. Like a very, very basic box midfield. I just thought with it being Arsenal away and knowing the way Lebris sets up that he might do that, but I wasn't gutted that he didn't. I can to be honest, I can see why he picked the team that he did, because and we'll get into this, but we did carry a threat for most of the game, and that probably came from just having a really fluid system that has worked in recent weeks. Because what I'm talking about would have actually fundamentally changed the way we've played in recent weeks.
It's interesting with the back five, isn't it? Because, and I stand to be corrected on this, but I don't think we've played a back five with Alderete in. I can't recall us playing a back five with him in. So I think my view of that is Lebris thinks we're actually strong enough with Ballard and Alderete as a two in defence, rather than needing to supplement it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's that thing, isn't it? It's that flexibility, because during the game you can see us settling back into a back five, and then suddenly a minute later, when we're looking to press a little bit, we look like a 4-4-2. And
well, that's right.
So it never looks like a 5 all the time, and it never looks like a 4, and they're always kind of chopping and changing between the two. But as I said, getting into the game after kickoff, Martin, I mean, 20 seconds in, Arsenal go down the right-hand side and put a cross in, and Havertz had a header, got that kind of, it went a long way wide in the end, but I just thought 20 seconds in, I thought, God, this is going to be a long afternoon. I was kind of, almost kind of digging my trench into, kind of getting behind the sofa to watch the rest of the game. But I thought our response in those first few minutes, I thought on 3 minutes, I wrote a note just saying, we're pressing high and we're being really brave. But at the same time, my other note was Arsenal have started with, the intention to get straight at us, and have started quickly. But I thought our reaction to stand up to that, Martin, in those few minutes was just brilliant.
All week in the build-up to the game, I don't know if you noticed, Arteta had been talking about the need for the crowd to be really up for this game. And I think he knew how tough a challenge it was going to be, and how big a game it could be for Arsenal in the quest for the championship. And if we'd started defensively and tried to sort of stifle them and just hold back, I think you open yourselves up to getting absolutely turned over, and it being a bloody awful game. And we've seen on other occasions, haven't we? At Chelsea and some other away games. Our away record isn't good, as I think we can all accept that. Our away form needs to improve. It's not been good. Some performances away from home haven't been good. I think this was actually one of our best away performances, probably of the season. I think it's easy to look at the 3-0 scoreline and think, well, the team got turned over, but I actually thought it was probably our best away performance of the season. And we set off with the intention and the mentality that we did need to press them, we did need to get in the faces and really go toe them, because Arsenal, I think, Gav, I think in the preview, was it you or Chris, one of you two said that Arsenal are the most like Sunderland in terms of style of play and the approach. And
Yeah.
it's spot on, because they do what we do, but they just do it another step or two up, don't they? Just with the quality of the players that they've got. But the physical, they'll press, they'll good at set pieces, all that sort of stuff. They'll offer a threat. They'll go long if they need to, but they'll keep the ball if they need to. And it was a really interesting game from that perspective, because you had two sides who were very similar, almost going toe to toe and trading blows. And again, you kind of look at stuff that you're jotting down. I'm writing down you were playing excellent here. We did not deserve to be a goal down at half time. Really dominated bits of that game, especially the first half, and then early in the second half, we were dominating spells of that game, and the crowd were getting nervous and all that sort of stuff. And I think, to go back to your question, Chris, that approach of actually starting the game strongly and not being scared and being brave and actually almost showing your cards early and going, we're not going to lie down here. We're going to go at you and we're going to press you and push you and all that sort of stuff. I think that was absolutely integral to how we needed to play. And, it's what was missing at West Ham or what was missing at Brentford. And I think we, again, on paper, it's another 3 goals conceded away from home in a defeat. And it's easy to look at that, go, well, Sunderland lost again by 3 away from home. But that performance yesterday was a world apart from what we saw at Brentford, what we saw at West Ham. And setting off with that mentality from the outset was actually critical in how that game played out.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll probably repeat myself, but I genuinely think it was one of the best hours of the season. Until about the hour mark, I thought not sure we've had a much better performance all season, but we'll go through it again, because actually, Gav, again, just to emphasise the point, in those early stages, Arsenal tried to pin us in and try to get that early goal and try to get the fans on board and try to really kind of steamroller us in those early stages. But again, just to talk about that point, how brave Sunderland were, because even when it went back to the goalkeeper, who is so important in the way Arsenal play, where he pings the ball out wide quickly so they make up ground and they kind of break from the halfway line rather than from deep in their own half. And we pushed right on them. So we didn't give them an outlet at all. We had 4 players lining up almost on the edge of Arsenal's box in the first 5 minutes when the goalkeeper had the ball. And it was almost like myself, you and Ant in the preview were saying, let's not be scared. We're here. Sunderland, we're a good team. We've got nothing to be scared of. Why? Let's just have a go and go at them. And the players did exactly that.
I think we always start out with the intent of playing like that in games, but sometimes you can tell after like a minute or two whether you're going to actually be able to carry the plan out or not. Like sometimes 3-4 minutes into the game or something, your players are trying to play the ball around and they keep putting it out for throw-ins and misplacing passes, playing them 5 yards too short and stuff. That wasn't the case here. So the intention is always there, but actually we did carry it out. And as we were talking about Xhaka earlier, I just wonder how much of an influence he had in the preparations and getting the lads ready for what to expect, knowing what he knows about Mikel Arteta and about Arsenal and just how they would come out and play. Because I assume, he's still very invested in the way their season's going and probably can give some really valuable insight into that. But, most of my notes in the first half an hour of the game were along those lines about I thought we looked really controlled. Like when we didn't have the ball, we were first to the second balls. And then when we recycled the play and we won it back, we weren't just giving it away. We were really calm. And I think Diarra had a massive part in that. I thought Diarra on the ball was magnificent. He filled that gap, what you normally get with Xhaka in there. I thought where Xhaka will just calm things down, play simple passes if he has to. Xhaka's very good at like recognizing what the team needs in that moment. And I thought Diarra did a really good job of that during the game. But yeah, I thought the tactic to press high and go man to man was really impressive. And I thought that actually cut off one of their main supply lines because it stopped David Raya playing it into midfield, into Declan Rice in particular. When they want to get on the ball and dominate possession, they couldn't do it, because what we were doing was we were going man for man. We were sitting basically on the edge of their box, making them go long to Gabriel Jesus, who's about 5'7", and Ballard and Alderete won everything. And yeah, I don't know what they were expecting from us, but I don't think I've seen us do that. Certainly not like regularly. I don't think we press like that normally. We normally do that thing where it'll generally be Enzo Lafay. He'll go and join the striker in the attack, and we'll line up in more of a 4-4-2 without the ball. And that's kind of how we mark and press when their goalkeeper's got the ball. Whereas on this occasion, you had Talby, you had Diarra, sometimes you had Hume pushing right up onto the fullback. From a tactical perspective, it was fascinating. Like, I love that stuff, me. I love watching Labrissa's game plan just play out and watch what he's doing. And he's obviously thought very long and hard about how we were going to do it. But the big thing was not only did we have that plan, but we actioned it. And I was really impressed with the physicality in midfield. Because again, you know, if you're gonna win battles against Arsenal, it's got to be physically, because they're one of the most physical teams in the Premier League. Even going right throughout the game, really. I know Arteta made a bit of a joke about it after the game, but their set plays, we completely nullified them. It's their biggest strength. They've received praise all season about set plays. You know, the way that they take corners. They didn't have a sniff. And he made a joke about it after the game, saying he was a bit pissed off that they didn't manage to score from a set play, because it's become a bit of a running joke, because it's basically their main way of scoring goals. They have 3 from open play in this game. So yeah, really, really impressive start, and we looked up for it, and that was the main thing. You have to be up for it, because particularly after West Ham, where we didn't look up for it for big spells of that game, I guess it had to be a bit of a reaction for the away fans as well.
Well, before we get into what could have been in Sunderland's brilliant 3-0 defeat at Arsenal, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back very soon.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Wherever Bud goes, his harmonica goes with him. It's a pocket full of soul. Now he's living with prostate cancer. He asked his doctor about Xtandi enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
And welcome back to How We're the podcast, and we're just getting into how amazing Sunderland were in a 3-0 defeat. Because after 7 minutes, Martin, I was getting giddy by this point. It was only 7 minutes into the game, but we had a free kick 10 yards inside our own half. Now, I thought this was a real sign of our intent. It was 10 yards inside of our own half, and for a start, I was completely in shock that we'd got a free kick from the referee, but we'll get into that in a minute. But it was 10 yards inside our half. Instead of looking to break quickly and short, that maybe we would have done against Burnley, you know, Hume walked up to the ball, spun it out. Everybody else ran to the edge of the Arsenal box. It was clear we were just going to do an old-style kind of Sam Allardyce, the big, long diagonal into the box. And it's kind of what we did with free kicks around the halfway line all day. And he played a long ball forward, and Dan Ballard, I think, jumped as high as the goalkeeper, beat the goalkeeper in the air, I think. And then a bubble to Brian Brobby. And it was kind of debatable, because I think he was in a bit of shock that the ball dropped to him, and I'm not sure he got the cleanest connections, but it wasn't half a chance. I had my hands on my head at that point.
There's a great chance, and I don't think he was even going on target, was it? When you watch the replay,
Yeah.
he just kind of screwed it wide a little bit. But the free kick was just symptomatic of us really trying to go toe to toe with them physically. Every opportunity we got, we launched the ball in the box and fancied ourselves and backed ourselves in the air against them. And I love this this thing that we're seeing in football with just going back to things that all of these football fashionistas have been telling us are out of fashion. You can't do that in football anymore. Football's progressed too much. You can't use a long throw anymore. It's like absolute bollocks. And the stuff like what we do, a lot of the time we are in a 4-4-2, and obviously it's a lot more nuanced and tactical and stuff like that than perhaps it was in the 80s. But it looks a 4-4-2. We'll go long when we can to mix it up. We'll put long throw-ins. Obviously, we'll be missing Mukiele's long throw-ins, haven't we? Because he's got an injured hand by the looks of things. But we'll put long throw-ins in. We'll get the ball into the box. And, I think if there's a criticism of us this season, we actually haven't got the ball into the box as often as we could have done. Sometimes we tend to take an extra pass or an extra touch before putting the ball in the box. Against Arsenal, we just got the ball in the box whenever we could. And I think we have to do that more. I really like that. The next thing I'm hoping to see us do is what Chelsea did the other night, is leave a couple of players up from corners when we're defending the corner. Leave a couple of players on the halfway line to mix that up. That's the next stage of Labrissa's tactical evolution at Sunderland this season. But no, it was a good chance. And actually, probably should have done better with it. And I think the game, if you look at the game overall, it was two very similar teams in the way that we play. As we said before, they're just better than us. They're the best team in the world, I think, really. I think you'd have a hard job making a really strong argument against that. They've just got better players, and they were able to convert those chances that we weren't able to convert. Probably, a world-class striker, Arsenal full of world-class players, a world-class striker gets that on target, and Robbie scuffed it. But it was, as I say, it probably caught him a bit by surprise. He tried to get on the end of it, but it was a good chance, though, wasn't it?
I watched it back on Match of the Day last night, and I wonder if he had scored, whether it would have been disallowed for a foul.
Oh, probably.
If you watch, he rags his man down to the ground. Yeah.
The referee was quite keen to give Arsenal free kicks and not give us free kicks. So any opportunity he got, he would have taken it.
We need to devote some time to that in a minute. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Gav, because Martin's talking about the next evolution of this Sunderland side. And we can talk all day about how fantastic we were off the ball in terms of, doing that press and being brave. But I tell you what, and I know you wrote some possession stats down as the game went on, because I thought we were so brilliant on the ball. I thought we were patient at the back and keeping the ball at the back, but almost sucking Arsenal in. And you could see Arsenal gradually getting frustrated and pushing forward. And then the likes of Ballard would whip a ball into Diarra in loads of space in the midfield. And then we were away. But I thought, as Martin says, we are kind of evolving in different ways, because we started the season tight at the back and organised. But I think with the ball, I just think as the season goes on, we're starting to get these, plans in place where actually we kind of suck teams in with the ball, and we just look more comfortable on the ball in open play as the season goes on.
The thing that we probably haven't talked about enough, because it's been such a good season, is that these players really don't know each other that well on the pitch. They're all still very new to each other. This was a squad that was thrown together in the summer, and it just worked, and it has just worked. But in terms of, building up those patterns of play and relationships, those things just naturally take time. And you would think that with more time, that relationship on the pitch is going to get better. And I mentioned Diarra being so good on the ball. We haven't had him. So, you're talking about a midfielder that cost us 30 million. We broke our transfer record to sign. We just haven't had this player available. So there are several levels and gears that we can step up, I think. And what was and I kind of already made this point before, but what was pleasing to me was that I think we always have the intent to do these things. Just sometimes it's just not our day. It doesn't come off. But we looked so sharp. We looked so at it. So comfortable on the ball. I mean, Enzo Lafay is one of the most technically brilliant footballers I've ever seen in the Sunderland shirt. But you could go right through the team. The way that they kept the ball was magnificent, and they just don't look phased. These are players who are playing at a level where they should be able to cope with knocking the ball around. Maybe us as fans, we're not kind of used to that because we spend so much time outside of the top flight. Like 4 years in League One probably scarred us a bit, having watched midfielders who could only pass it back to the goalkeeper or into the fullback, and didn't know how to turn when receiving possession. Like that was a struggle going through League One. So maybe we've just forgot what good footballers do in the Premier League, you know. But no, I think it was notable. Even the commentators mentioned repeatedly. It wasn't just once or twice. It was right throughout the game, even when we were 2-0 down, talking about how well Sunderland were moving the ball around, and we were getting lots of praise for that. So, yeah, again, if we're plucking positives from the performance in the game, I would definitely say the way we retained the ball was one of them. I mean, it was so significant that when we did lose the ball on the odd occasion, it stood out like a sore thumb. I think Alderete maybe done it 2 or 3 times where he gave the ball away and it was poor, but it was because we hadn't really done it that often that it stood out. And yeah, that would probably be a small positive, wouldn't it, from the game as a whole? But at 0-0, at 0-0, there was nothing between us and them. Like I thought we were probably, in terms of the battle in the second balls, we were the better side. We were more up for the physical battle, but when they actually had the ball, they had that little bit more quality, and you could see that when it was going into Havertz and he was getting shots away that were just whistling past the post. Same with Declan Rice. Those are the warning signs that you get. You mentioned the right at the start of the game, the header from Havertz, which came from a Trossard ball, really good ball from Trossard, hung up to the back post. They've got quality all over the pitch. The story of the game shows that quality shone through in the end. But for 41 minutes or whatever it was, we matched them and we looked just as good as they did. And I actually think that is a real credit to us. I thought we really acquitted ourselves well.
Well, just before we get into the goal, Martin, I wanted, because my notes for the first 40 minutes essentially scattered by Brian Brobby and Saliba and that battle. But generally as well, we can talk about as well, but specifically that one. But Brian Brobby is very quickly turning into one of my favourite Sunderland strikers for a long time, Martin. And looking at the battle he had, I thought it all started on 4 minutes. That was my first kind of time I noted it down, because that was the first time they had a battle and the free kick went against Brian Brobby. And I think after that, the referee just assumed that every time after that, it was a free kick against him and it was him doing the fouling. Now, he did get lucky in one of his tackles, I have to admit. Maybe, 2 out of 10 referees might have, sent him off, or a crazy VAR, assistant might have went, I think that's a red. We need to have a look at that with his tackle on. That was slightly high. I think a yellow was fine for it, but some referees might have gone big on it. But just in general, the way he had to battle, and we've had this debate before, that the way Brian Brobby does battle, and we all love it, but is it 6 and 2 threes, or does he get the kind of the rough end when it comes to referees' decisions?
I think in a lot of occasions, it is kind of a relatively fair battle, because when you watch him, he's got a handful of the defender's shirt more often than not, hasn't he? He's battling away with them. The issue I have with it, because I think he was harshly done to on a number of occasions. Yes, I think he should have got fouls where he didn't get them. There seems to be a higher threshold for a referee to give a foul against Brobby than other players because of his strength. It's almost like referees penalise him for his strength and say, well, you're strong, you should be able to withstand that. Whereas if some of those tackles had gone in on Lefay or gone in on Talby, they're an absolute stonewall free kick. So I actually think he's getting penalised because he's so strong. I think he's fantastic. I think he's we're seeing the real Brian Brobby now, aren't we? We're seeing a fit striker he's got a bit of legs. There was a couple of occasions where he was trying to run down the side of defenders and really power through. I don't think we actually used him well enough in the first half. I think we had a spell in the second half, didn't we, of maybe 15, 20 minutes at the start of the second half, where we were intent on playing the ball into his feet and letting him hold it up, getting players around him. I think, if you're going to be a little bit, it's not being critical, it's going, okay, well, in the first half, what didn't we do perhaps as well as we could do? As Gav mentioned, we gave the ball away a couple of times, a little bit unforced errors. Alderete gave it away a couple of times. There was one occasion where Ronaldo kind of skipped past somebody and he had the ball and he was looking to pick a pass out, and the lad he skipped past came back and nicked the ball off him. So it wasn't just Alderete, was it? It was a few of them gave the ball away a little bit cheaply. And, of course, that kind of led to the first goal. But I think Broby's brilliant. I think what we need to do is just get players around him a little quicker sometimes. Sometimes he's kind of a little isolated, isn't he? And he's battling away. But it's a great battle to watch. Him up against any defender. It's like a battle royale, isn't it? And to some extent, you just got to kind of let them get on with it.
Yeah. I mean, just quickly, I want to bring you in on it, Gav, on the debate, because I don't know whether you agree or disagree. Does Broby give as good as he gets? And sometimes, the referee just doesn't know, so just gives a foul to the defender?
He definitely gives as good as he gets, but I think there's a pattern developing here in games where referees are just giving him nothing, essentially. I mean, that one you referred to, the first one, Chris, I think it was 4 minutes in. They were as bad as each other. How can the referee give the free kick against Broby there? Because they're both doing the exact same thing. They've both got a handful of each other's shirts. Normally, you find that attacking players get the majority of the decisions. It's normally the defenders who maybe you could say the bias is shaded towards because they're the more physical players. I don't think Broby's alone, by the way. I think Ballard gets the same treatment on set players, and we might come on to that because I think he should have had a penalty before half time. But referees seem to referee physical players differently, and I don't know. I've referred to this quite a bit over time, but I think with sort of physical players sort of dying out of the game, the ones that are physical maybe stand out a little bit more, and referees do treat them a little bit differently because there isn't another striker in the Premier League like Brian Broby, is there? I don't know if you've seen the clip back. We've used the photos and a few things on articles, and I used it on the on the pod art yesterday for the reaction pod. But that was it's just comedy like when he's got Madueke in a headlock and he pulls that headband over his eyes, and then Madueke's like gesturing to the referee, he's like, "How are you?" Whatever. Maybe not saying how I don't think he's from Sunderland. And then
you start rumours there.
And then I can't remember who the other player is who's involved, but Broby just shoves him away, but in a way that's actually legal to win the ball. It's great to watch, isn't it? It's I agree with Martin. Actually, I think in terms of an actual centre forward, we didn't use him well enough in the first half, and it was a marked improvement, noticeable. They clearly talked about it in the second half. At half time to go into the second half, but that first half, it just great to watch. It's it's a real throwback. I was trying to think of other strikers Sunderland have had who've been like that, and I thought when I was a kid, Quinny used to get a raw deal off refs and stuff, but I've never seen anybody use their body the way Broby does. He's just an absolute unit. People can't get near him, but also a really good footballer who's got a great first touch. Can that his layoffs to his teammates to build attacks and stuff. Technically, he's really, really is. He's almost the perfect package up there. If you can get him, and I mean his goal scoring rate since he actually came into the team as a regular starter has been brilliant. But you can imagine him with a good run at pre-season. He's a 15 goal striker all day. He is really, really talented, and there'll be teams watching Broby now and thinking, I wouldn't mind him in my squad. And they'll be looking at him and thinking, Sunderland only paid 20 million euros for him. Jesus, some of the crap that's been bought by other clubs, not mentioning any names, Newcastle, Vissa and Waldemar, but, some of the money that's been spent on utter shite in this league, I think I would be gutted if I was a fan of a team watching Sunderland going, they paid an out for him. He is that good though, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a bit 10 minutes into the second half where he just stopped the ball on the touchline. And basically, I thought the game had stopped, but all he was doing was fighting two Arsenal players off the ball. And the ball was stationary. The ball didn't move. All he doing was fighting two of them off. But anyway, let's get into the goal, Martin, because that changed things because it was on 41 minutes. And look, a lot of question marks and a lot of fingers have been pointed at people, because I think people were just so frustrated because we conceded when we were playing so well and it looked so good. Because the finger was pointed at Alderete, but to be fair, he was looking for a ball down the line, and because we were all dug in, he didn't have a huge amount of options. But he did lose possession of the ball. But even then, there was a big gap between then and the ball going out to Arsenal's left-hand side. And then they played the ball inside, and we did have a warning 10 minutes earlier with Declan Rice. But when the fingers were pointed, it was saying Zubamendi had too much time on the edge of the box, and then Roofs got beat at his near post. But I think sometimes, Martin, you've just got to tip your hat and just say they've just had a bit of class, and that's what split the two sides.
I think there's two bits to this goal, right? I think the first bit is us conceding possession very, very easily. And again, if you're looking at the differences between the two sides, it was encapsulated in that moment. Arsenal didn't give the ball away unnecessarily too much. And, we did. I think we'd had a warning, hadn't we, earlier on? Alderete had given the ball away and ended up with Hume kind of skewing that one over the bar, where it looked as if it was destined for the top corner at one point. So we'd had a little bit of a warning with that in terms of being careful in possession. But once Alderete had lost the ball, there was still an awful lot to happen, wasn't it, before the goal actually ended up being scored. I don't have any issue with anything else that happened after that. I think you can look at us conceding possession and go, look, we've kind of done that and given it away too cheaply. But from then on in, I think, you've got to hold your hand and go, it's an absolutely tremendous strike. I don't think he had necessarily too much time on the ball. I think we kind of closed them down to some extent. I think you and I were talking, it was after the Man City game, wasn't it? Where somebody had scored, I can't remember who opened scoring for Man City, but it was a goal from way out. And yes, that's right. And that kind of made the point going, we're probably quite happy for them to have shots from there, because the chances of them going in and getting on target to start with and beating a goalkeeper like Robin Roofs from that distance, it's fairly slim. You're going to want them to have pot shots from there. So, if you kind of come piling out, you then open up space 10 yards further in towards goal for them to thread a ball through. So there's probably that bit where they've trained to try to hold up 20 or 10 yards outside the penalty box, rather than actually smash in and dive in and go towards the ball too much. The strike itself was superb. He cut across it, didn't he? And it kind of swerved. There's one angle where it looks as if it's going wide, and he just swerves, hits the inside of the post, goes across. Look, I think if you're going to be absolutely mega critical of Robin Roofs, you go an absolute world class, best goalkeeper in the world might get a fingertip to that. Anybody else gets beaten by it. And it was I think that to me was the only way they were going to score, with a goal from outside the box like that. I think we kind of weathered the early storm, as he said. Half an hour in, their crowd were getting really agitated with them because they were struggling to break us down. And the resort had taken long shots. You mentioned Declan Rice one. I think there was another one or two. And I think they just decided, look, we're going to have a crack. And unfortunately for us, unfortunately for them, he got it absolutely spot on, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, in the later stages of the second half, Gav, we had a couple of scares with Jesus going through but was offside, and Ballard potentially getting away with it if it wasn't offside. But then there was Havertz who curled a shot wide. But then, last second of stoppage time, we had a penalty shout that went to VAR that kind of just got brushed under the carpet a little bit. I don't know what you made of it.
Yeah, I made a big song and dance to this on the reaction pod. If anyone's listened to that, you'll be able to catch me when I was probably a bit more animated straight after the game. But for me, a nailed-on penalty, and again, an example of where Ballard gets treated differently in the way Robbie does too, because it was Zubamendi, who's 5'7", 8 or whatever it is, fouling a 6'3" defender. Apparently, it doesn't count. You said VAR. Look, I must have missed that. I don't know if
Yeah,
did or not.
They checked it.
Yeah,
Because the players kind of were delayed coming off at half time, weren't they?
right. Well, that's even more irritating then, because I don't understand how that's not being given. Yeah, I mean, I watched the the Brentford Newcastle game, which was on after it, and the amount of times VAR was used in that game, and you're just like VAR is weird, isn't it? Like, I know the reason we're in the Premier League is because of VAR, so I'm not going to completely slag it off. And not the whole reason we're in the Premier League, but you know what I mean. But like, it has been good to us. But I just think sometimes, like, how can you say that and then have the opportunity to look at it and then decide, actually, no, that's not a penalty. I just don't get it.
You mentioned the Newcastle game, Gav. If you're a Brentford fan, I know that Brentford obviously won that game, but that one where Trippier pulls them back, and how can you that go to the VAR and then go, oh, that's fine? It's nuts.
Yeah.
And the other thing with this, right, at the start of the season, referees were told to clamp down on shirt pulling in the box and all that sort of stuff. And it was actually the Brentford game that we played at home, wasn't it, where we conceded a penalty and we got given a penalty for that sort of stuff going on in the box. And you kind of wonder whether it's one of those where VAR wouldn't overturn it if it got awarded, but they're not going to award it if it wasn't given, because then it sets a really low bar for them for every single time a ball goes into the box. So VAR's probably reluctant to give a penalty for anything like that, unless it's like super obvious. But if it had been given by the referee, there's no way they're going to overturn it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, look, going into the second half, again, I thought we were absolutely brilliant looking at the start of that second half, because it was a great passing move just a couple of minutes after the break, ended with Talby, and he had a shot from the edge of the box that forced the keeper into a good save. Then a few minutes later, a long ball by Roofs caused issues for Arsenal, and Talby and Brobby almost got in. But on this, Martin, just on that Talby one, because the co-commentator, I can't remember who it was now, kind of touched on it a little bit. But he was like, if Talby had moved across the path of the ball, he would have been absolutely clattered, but would have gotten something. But it's that kind of, that he knew what he would have been getting in for if he was like that brave to stand to go across the path of the ball. But it was close to being in. I mean, I thought at one point the keeper was going to make a hash of it, and we were going to get something out of it.
Caused all sorts of confusion, didn't it? And I think it happened so quickly. I'd be really reluctant to say Talby didn't do it because he was going to get clattered. I think he was just waiting to see what happened. You could see, the ball coming. You could see Arsenal players in his periphery, all moving around. He probably felt the goalkeeper sort of surging out of his box, and he's probably thinking, "I'm just going to see where this lands and see where it gets to." But you know what? That just highlighted to me just how well we played in that first 20 minutes of the second half. I thought we were absolutely brilliant for that first 20 minutes. We looked a bit more dangerous in attack than we had done in the first half. We were causing a whole load of problems. Again, they were crapping themselves, weren't they, for that first bit, because they genuinely thought we're going to score. And when you watch the game, it had the feeling that we were going to score. It was kind of building up to us getting equalised at that point, because we were in real control of the game. I thought we were playing superbly well, and I thought at that point we actually had them on the ropes.
Yeah, because looking at my notes, exactly the same. I've got up to 64 minutes when I've done the sub. I've got very good start to the second half. We're the better side. I've got Arsenal looking edgy. Sunderland are in a good position to get something out of this game. All of those sort of notes. And that was a minute before, Gav, the second goal went in. Gyökeres, ended up scoring it, but Trossard played a ball into the box and Havertz laid it off. You could argue Gyökeres had too much time. Roofs pretty much had no chance. But again, it kind of started with Michele in almost a similar position to Alderete, who could have maybe cleared it. But again, it was just so frustrating. And I think people, again, pointed fingers at specific individuals again, just because we were so frustrated because we were in a good position and we played so well.
Yeah, it was a very similar type of goal to concede in terms of the way we lost the ball. When you watch it back, Broby's begging him to pass it, and he should have. You fancy him to just hold it up and get us up the pitch every time it goes into his feet, and he doesn't play it, and then hesitates. And I think might be Diarra, but I would have to say it back again. But there is a player near him, and they kind of get caught in who's going to go to the ball, and I think that throws Nordy off a little bit. But yeah, he does give the ball away. That happens, 20 times in a game. It's just one of them things. Not every time in a game, though, are you punished with a world-class pass, which we were. And the ball from Trossard to Havertz, who then just lays it to Gyökeres, I think is genuinely world-class and is what sets Arsenal apart from the majority of teams we play, because it's just that one moment of quality that every team wants to have to unlock, particularly teams who play with a low block, right? I mean, how many times in the Championship and League One did we have teams come to the stadium and I put 11 men behind the ball and get so frustrated with not being able to break them down because we just didn't have quality because we were a low-end team? Well, in the Premier League, you can only imagine what kind of quality you have to be able to call upon to unlock top-level international defences like what we've got. But that was that ball from Trossard. It's such a good ball. Like, people should watch that back and just look at how many bodies he plays that pass through. It's not going to get, I don't think it'll get many plaudits actually, but it is genuinely world class. And and then the job's very easy because Havertz just lays it back to Gyökeres. And I know Gyökeres gets a bit of stick, but I actually thought he actually changed things when he came on. And they had a bit of presence up front. And because Jesus had just been swallowed up by Alderete and Ballard till that point, couldn't get anywhere near them really. And Gyökeres gave us something different to think about. And I've always kind of stuck up for Gyökeres when I've seen people criticise him, because every time I've seen him play against Sunderland, he's been devastating. I think all the way back to when he played for Coventry, that first game back in the Championship after we'd been promoted, and it was like watching Drogba play with a bunch of kids. Like he was. So I've always said there's a player in there, and yeah, I think it was another decent goal from Arsenal. You could be a little frustrated with the way we conceded. I was actually just gutted. I felt so hard done to because I think up until then we'd been the better side. I think for 20 minutes we'd been the best team on the pitch, and actually it was a bit more sickening than the first one in that regard, because we'd come out after half time and we'd had put right some of the, like the thing Martin mentioned before about using Brobby better. Like I think we did. We were a little bit more direct. And I thought Arsenal were panicked. And at 1-0, I was like, we can get back into this. And that's Sunderland away at the league leaders, getting beat 1-0. So, like, I was a bit deflated after the second goal because it was game over and I don't think we deserved to be 2-0 down.
The other bit with the second goal, and I don't know if either of you spotted it, Alderete kind of goes the wrong way.
Yeah.
So Alderete is the closest one to Gyökeres when he gets the ball at his feet. And it's almost like Alderete didn't want to go with his right foot and he was expecting them to come across him. But if you watch it back, he defends really poorly. And, I think Alderete has been fantastic this season. One thing I think he's been most fantastic about is getting those blocks in at the right time in the box. I think he's been absolutely superb this season for doing that. So it's actually really unusual for him not to read that right. But he almost, whether he's gets caught in two minds or what, but he actually doesn't react. And if he goes with his right foot, he gets tackled and blocks it. And it was just a really strange decision from him. In the heat, it's obviously a split second subconscious decision, isn't it? But it really stands out when you watched him do what he's done all season for us, because it just didn't seem as if he was doing what he normally does. The other thing I wanted to come back to and ask both of you what you thought about, you mentioned the sub, Chris. Bringing Talby off, after he had a good shot early on in the second half. And I know he's just come back from AFCON, he didn't play a great deal, so there's probably a bit of fitness stuff going on there as well that we need to manage. But he showed on Monday night against Burnley that he's got the ability to score a goal out of nothing. And at 1-0 down, you surely want those players who can do that on the pitch. And if you're going to take him off, if you need to take him off for fitness reasons, you've got this new lad who's just come in, bang on match fitness, bang in form in terms of scoring goals, complete unknown package. And I was shocked that Angulo didn't come on. And I was really, really surprised Mundle did, because Mundle, I think, I thought Mundle was great for that first spell in the Championship when he was fully fit last season. But he's looked as if he's been struggling a bit at Premier League level. I don't think he's quite hit the straps at Premier League level. And I thought when we're 1-0 down to to make a change like that, where you're making a change to get a goal, I thought was a really strange sub.
Yeah. Well, I'll hand it over to Gav in a second, but I've got a feeling, and I was kind of touch on it a little bit, that it was almost communication to Mundle, because bringing in a couple of wingers, because we brought in Angulo and Tarby as well, I do wonder whether it was a bit of communication where, I mean, it's a strange time to do it when you're in the game and you can still get something out of the league leaders and you're away to them. But I thought it was maybe a bit of communication to say, no, you're still in my thoughts. Because if he brought Angulo on and just ignored Mundle, and Mundle, let's say, didn't get on or got on for the last 5 minutes when the game's over, that Mundle's feeling that, right, Sunderland's career is almost over at that point. But I do think Labris, it's almost a big vote of confidence saying, no, with 25 minutes to go with the game on a knife edge, we can still get something out of it. I'm going to bring you on, and this is me communicating that you're still in my plans. But I don't know what you thought, Gav.
Maybe a bit of that, but I was thinking it's probably more to do with the fact that Angulo only trained with the team on Friday, and Labris is very big on messaging and knowing the way we play and people knowing where they should be with him without the ball. And that's going to be difficult to get across in one training session to a new player, whereas Mundle knows the system inside out, will have prepped all week for the game. I think it was probably more that than anything else, because it was only 1-0 and we were, I mean, I noted down when we made the change, it was 64 minutes. So there was still like half an hour of the game left and we weren't desperate. So I think if it's 1-0 with, I don't know, if it's 1-0 with 10 minutes to go or something, maybe it's a little different. And then he chucks on Angulo and goes, right, go and win us the game. When Angulo did come on, if you look at, he came on the right hand side, and he came on just to man mark Trossard. He doesn't actually, because we didn't see a lot of the ball. He just follows Trossard all over the pitch. So he'd obviously that side. That's a very simple instruction, isn't it? You play on the right hand side, and you make sure that you're tight to him, and you don't let him have the ball. I think if he'd maybe had a few more days of training with the team and had prepped for the game in more detail, maybe we would have seen Angulo a little earlier. But it felt like a strange change. I'm wondering whether, because just taking Angulo out of the conversation here, you're right about Talby. He scored goals away at Chelsea and Liverpool and only scored the other day. We've seen what he can do in tight games away from home, where I've not seen that yet from Romain Mundle. Is he just looking at Wednesday and thinking, right, we need to freshen things up a little bit here? Or, you would have to ask Regis Labris, but I don't know what the thinking was, to be honest.
I have to admit, I actually agreed with the substitution, not necessarily to bring Mundle on, but to maybe change Talby out, because I thought Talby had gone through so much work on that wing that in the 5-10 minutes before, I thought he was getting brushed off the ball a bit easy. I thought he looked tired. He didn't look like he had the strength that he did at the start of the game. And I thought that him coming off wasn't necessarily a bad thing to do. I was surprised that it was Mundle, and that was my initial thoughts, that it was Labris saying, you're still involved in this. You're still, important to me, because otherwise, if he doesn't come on or the new signing goes straight on ahead of him. But just to your point, Gav, that you're bringing an attacking player on, and he's only signed on Thursday or whatever. But with an attacking player and you want a goal, sometimes you just go, well, just do your thing. Just be positive. Yeah. I'm not going to give you instructions. Just create something.
That's what I mean. I think if it was a little later in the game and it was still 1-0, that would have been the instruction. I just think there was still half an hour to play, and we were, as the game wore on, Arsenal were going to dominate more and more, the ball being the home team and just being a league leader, like their way of managing the game. There was going to be a lot of time spent without the ball. So, in hindsight, yeah, get him on as early as possible and try something different. But I can understand the thinking why you would maybe not bring on a player, particularly a foreign player, a young player and an experienced player. Why would maybe not bring them on too early in the game when he doesn't know the way we play, really, does he? Like, that's the thing. With a week's training, it's a different story, I think. I think he probably is showing a little bit more trust. But it's like I mentioned at the top, didn't I, about how I'd had this premonition he was going to come on and score the winner, Cisse style. Like that was, to me, if he was going to have any impact on the game, that was it. If it was like 1-0, 10 minutes to go, right, get on, just bang it in from 25 yards or put a great ball in for somebody else. I think that was maybe where he was going to have the most impact. I think it was just one of them. He comes, Talby comes off like a minute and a half before we conceded the second goal. So would things have been different if we'd brought Angulo on at that point? I don't know. It's one of them.
Well, obviously, some crazy people pointed the finger at Mundell and blamed him for for going 2-0 down only after a minute of being on the pitch. But yeah, that last half an hour, Martin, it did kind of just play out. Arsenal looked very comfortable. We looked, dejected because we played so well and realising that we weren't going to get anything out of the game. But it was such a shame that third went in because we just didn't deserve that, did we?
No, not at all. Obviously, we'd lost Siddiqui, hadn't we, as well, with about 20 minutes to go, and Guitrard came on for him. So hopefully that's nothing serious, because he was kind of holding his hamstring, wasn't he? And he came off pretty shortly afterwards. I think it was obviously more protection and caution than anything else. But fingers crossed he's all right for Wednesday, because without him and Xhaka in midfield, it would be a bit of a daunting prospect, I guess. But the last 20 minutes, Arsenal had obviously won the game. I think it was very unlikely we were going to get back into it. But we still had a lot of possession. We still had a number of chances to get the ball in the box. And, if we'd stuck the goal back at that point, again, Arsenal get all nervy, don't they? But the third goal was, it gave the scoreline such a harsh look, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I said it earlier, if you look at the results on paper, well, Sunderland conceded 3 again, got beat away from home. This was such a different game to anything else that we've had this season, I think. And we absolutely went toe-to-toe with probably the best side in the world at present. And, on a different day with a couple of different decisions, both by referees and players, you can get a draw out of that game, or you can win that game, putting in exactly the same performance. So, look, I think it was a really cruel goal to concede. And obviously, look, you can kind of pick the bones out of it, but it's kind of pointless, isn't it? Because the game was completely done and dusted. And for Arsenal, I put the icing on the cake, but it was, it was just a really cruel. Because I don't think the players deserved to be on the end of a 3-0 yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. It was similar for me, that like the start of the Man City game. I thought we were fantastic for 30 or 40 minutes in that game, went toe-to-toe. And for this one, it was an hour against Arsenal. But Regis Labris summed it up, Gav, after the game. He said, we played against a ruthless team. They were really efficient with many threats coming off the bench. He said, we had a couple of opportunities in the second half, but we didn't seize them. But he went on to say it's the beginning of our journey in the Premier League, and they've built this team over many years. You can feel the quality. They are at a different level, and that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Yeah,
and it's a reminder to people who were losing their minds a bit after the game about the way that we lost the game. That, not only are we playing the best team in the land, but this is an Arsenal team that has taken many years to build. Arteta didn't just get the job in the summer and go out and sign a bunch of players. His owners have shown him a lot of patience, and they've had some disappointing seasons. They've only won, I think, 1 trophy under him, and it was an FA Cup. Maybe during COVID, I might be wrong, but they haven't won. They haven't won much at all, really, for many years. I mean, they haven't won a Premier League since 2004, and it's just a reminder that these things take time. We have leapt forward several stages over a very short space of time, and that's been, I wouldn't say masked, but maybe facilitated by our unbelievable home form. Like, not only have we made some really big strides forward, but also we've our home form's been unbelievable, and that's why we're so high up in the table. But maybe the away form is a little bit of a reminder of how new to this we are, and how difficult the Premier League is, and how we've still got room to improve. I think Martin's made the point a couple of times now, but it is worth banging home repeatedly. This is a very different feel to the previous 2 away defeats, particularly West Ham. And we scored in that game, by the way. But we weren't at it against West Ham. I thought Brentford were just a better team than us. I don't think West Ham were a better team than us. I just thought we didn't turn up and we gave them too many opportunities. In this game against Arsenal, I think if you just you look at it, I think for like 60 odd minutes of the game, we were as good as them. If not better at times. I've got so many notes I've written down are just like, we've been outstanding, we've been brilliant, we're better, we're matching them.
I know it sounds daft after a 3-0 defeat, but like, I honestly think if you take into consideration the quality of the opposition, that's actually our best away performance of the season. Like,
Possibly.
seriously?
It's raged, isn't it? And I know what you're saying. It is such a weird, it seems like such a weird thing to say after you've lost 3-0. But I used in the title of yesterday's pod that the lads did us proud. I think they did. I think we were really good. That was us trying our best. And if anything, it shows you how good Arsenal are, because that was not them trying their best.
Yeah.
Yet they won 3-0. It's just it's something that we're going to have to come to accept from time to time, that there are better teams than us in this league, and they will punish you. We made 3 mistakes in the game, and in all 3 cases we were punished. Yeah. The pass from Alderete for the first, the pass from Mukiele for the second, Ronaldo misjudging a bounce for the third. Like, we're not talking about massive. It's not like someone slipped on their arse or they were trying to piss around with it at the back and we've played someone in on goal. These are just normal mistakes you make about 20 times in a game. But because Arsenal are so good, they're so confident, they're walking the league, they're going to win. They're probably going to win the Champions League. They're probably going to win a couple of cups. I think it was Andrew said before we started recording yesterday that there's something like 30-1 to win the quadruple, which is crazy. Like, just remember who we played, and that will give an awful lot of context to why we're actually. I feel like we've just sat here and been really positive, but genuinely coming away from it, we lost 3-0, and I was like, I'm pretty positive about what I've just seen. In fact, going into Liverpool on Wednesday, that's given me confidence that we can actually take something off them. Again, I understand it, particularly if you're a travelling fan, if you've gone down there to see us get scudded, which we weren't scudded, but losing 3-0, I can understand why you would be a little bit negative or maybe not as positive as we've been. But I just think objectively this was not a bad performance from Sunderland. It was actually pretty good. And you've got to take it on the chin and move on quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching the game other than the actual result. But Martin, just quickly on that away form, because of course, we should talk about that. We haven't won since a week before Halloween, and I think it's I want to get this the right way around. It's 3 draws and 5 defeats since then. Go on, Gav.
I'm the curse, lads. I got married that day. Ever since I got married, we haven't won away from home.
But actually, Martin, do you think Regis Labris is going to actually think in his head, right, we have to actually improve the away form? Because I think in his mind, he's going through the performances and saying, well, we got this wrong against West Ham, and it's very specific things rather than it's how we play away from home.
No, that's right. And I think there's different aspects to it, isn't it? So like the West Ham game, again, we've said it a few times, haven't we? It's a very different defeat. West Ham game, I think, was application and attitude. I just think we weren't switched on we weren't at the races that day. Yesterday was completely different. I think, again, you play that game, you play that game against a side mid-table in the Premier League, and we win that away from home because we played really well. And I think there's loads of different aspects to the away performances. A big key to the solution for me is Habib Diarra coming back into the team. He's got the legs to get up around Brian Broby. He can get into those little gaps, play 1-2s with them, get through on goals we saw against Burnley on Monday. I think him coming into the team, Angulo will come into the team. I think he'll probably start at Oxford if he doesn't get a starting position against Liverpool. I think he'll be on the bench against Liverpool on Wednesday, but I think he'll get a start against Oxford. And he'll be I would have thought he'd be in the first team more often enough from there on in. But, he's somebody who looks like he can kind of pull something out of the bag and create something out of nothing and all that sort of stuff. And we just need those little bits of moments of magic away from home, because defensively we're generally pretty sound. But I think Diarra come back into the team, it'll really, really impact home and away, but I think it'll really have an impact on how we play away. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, last one, Gav, because 9th in the Premier League, we're 3 points behind Liverpool, who we've got on Wednesday at the time of recording, which is, of course, before the fixtures play out over the weekend. But yeah, we've got them on Wednesday, which is something to look forward to, and the rest of the season in general, because we've got Oxford in the FA Cup. We've got Xhaka coming back. We've got Diarra, as Martin said, coming back into it and looking good. I mean, I'm just desperate to, and we talked about this the other day, just going to enjoy the rest of the season, and I'm just excited about how it's all going to play out.
Yeah, I briefly touched on it there, but I've got loads of confidence coming out of this game going into Wednesday that we can beat Liverpool. Now, there's a sentence you didn't think I would utter maybe at the start of the season. But this isn't the same Liverpool team that won the Premier League, and they're still an unbelievable team with unbelievable players. And when I talk about individual quality deciding games like it did against Arsenal, they've certainly got a lot of that. But what they don't have, which Arsenal do, is belief at the minute, Liverpool. And we've got to take full advantage of that. I think they will not be looking forward to this. Sunderland's still the only unbeaten team in the Premier League at home. Their form's not great. I mean, you made the point there, Chris, but we are recording this well before they play Man City today. So if they beat Man City, then they're going to be bouncing into this game. But let's just see how that plays out. Regardless, we can only do and focus on ourselves as we do every single time we play. I think when we did the Q&A the other day, I was talking about how some of the recent home games, maybe the atmosphere hasn't been as great because of the level of opposition. People expect us to beat Burnley, for instance, expecting us to beat Palace because of their form coming into it and stuff. So there was a different feel about them games where I think people will be well up for this. It's a night game. I think the atmosphere is going to be really good. And look, we've got nothing to fear. And you're right, the rest of the season is a free hit as far as I'm concerned. Particularly these home games, because going to watch Sunderland at the Stadium Light this season has been an absolute privilege. It's been a pleasure. Like, I've been a season ticket holder my whole life. I've never had a season as good as this, going to the Stadium Light. So, I'm sure the lads will park it. They'll not think too long and hard about Arsenal. We've assessed it there in an hour and a bit, and most of the key points that we've hit on will be the ones the club do. We need to be tighter when we've got the ball and we're trying to clear our lines. We need to take our chances when we do get them, because whether it would have stood or not, that Broby one early on would have been a really big chance. We maybe need luck that you get as a home team, because Arsenal definitely got luck in terms of the officiating. Like, we probably should have had a penalty. I don't think we've actually talked about it as much as I did on the reaction pod, but I think Saliba should have been sent off. I think he made enough fouls in that first half to have warranted 2 yellow cards. If he goes off, if we get a penalty, it's a different game. And we talk about this all season. These little things, when they go your way, decide games. They didn't go our way in this one. So, let's not dwell on it too much. It's a 3-0 defeat, yes, but it doesn't feel like one, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's probably a good place to end it today. And it's probably the reason why the three of us aren't on pods together more often, because we can talk all day about Sunderland. But it just leaves me to say,
Chris, before you say that, we talked for half an hour before we even hit record.
Well, exactly. So maybe we should avoid it in future. But there you go. But just leaves me to say thank you very much, Gav. Appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
And thanks again, Martin. Good to see you.
Cheers, Chris. Cheers, Gav. Yes, that was good fun. We should do it more often.
Well, not get beat 3-0, but
no,
you know what I mean. We'll get together and talk. Yes, absolutely. But thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have loads more analysis on the Roker Report website. We'll have pods every day this week, as usual, to reflect on this, as well as looking forward to the clash with Liverpool, which Gav's got the ball rolling on that. So look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.